Hey guys, T-Bull here. Today we're going to be taking a look at some user-submitted clips for replay analysis. A couple of points before we get going. Number one, if you want to potentially have your clip analyzed, there's a link to the Discord below in the video description. You can just join that, and then there's a section called like post your replay analysis submission or something like that. Just upload your game to YouTube or something that I could potentially download it from, and if it's a game that I think has some things we can learn from just by quickly scanning through it, then I'll potentially look at it. I'm not looking for 200k damage Kraken games, so please don't post them because I'm not going to use them. And point number two, these are players that could be potentially really experienced players, potentially really new players. We don't really know. These are players that are saying, I'm trying to get better, I want to get some outside advice on my game. So if you want to add comments in the comments section of the video, please be my guest. I do like getting comments from you guys, obviously, but I want them to be respectful. Don't be putting down these players. I have a lot of respect for anyone who says I'm trying to improve my game. Most players that play this game are just sailing around goofing off without trying to win or improve whatsoever. So we're here to help these players, and if you want to add your 2 cents, by all means go ahead, but please do so respectfully. Alright, so first match, looks like we got a Maass game. Domination mode neighbors. North spawn. Looks like you got 2 destroyers and a battleship over here. Early on, what you want to be analyzing, we have 3 destroyers in their team, 3 on your team. Because you have 2 here, that means you have 1 cap potentially unprotected. Right now we've sighted 2 ships, so until we have any indication to the contrary, we should assume that they're sending 1 destroyer in here. Maass, this is a tier 7 game, so there are ships that, destroyers in particular, that are dangerous to it, but Maass in general is a very good ship at destroying other destroyers, so you can play this fairly aggressively, but you do need to be advised that those are 2 dangerous ships behind them that could potentially support that destroyer, if it is indeed a destroyer there. And I like what you're doing here. You're kind of providing yourself an out. If you're getting this cap uncontested, go ahead and take it. You do have another destroyer, looks like another Maass supporting you. So that's a very strong 1-2 punch with the destroyers here. And if they're going to concede the cap like that, that's fine. Looks like... yeah, okay, looks like... alright, so they do have 3 ships over there that are, none of them are destroyers, so... usually if... a lot of times ships that aren't destroyers are going to be hesitant to push in the cap right off the bat, so that's fine. You did take a look on the roster there. If you did notice, they have 3 destroyers. They're all divisioned up, so that's probably something we want to be keeping an eye on here. Now, they've taken B. You guys are challenging it. It looks like they have destroyers sighted in A as well, so to me, it looks like you're pursuing these ships. I don't know if that's necessarily what you want to be doing. I would probably... I don't know if you're on the comms or not, but if you could potentially talk to that other Maass, I would just go ahead and play Destroyer Hunter in this situation. Getting close to these ships, I understand you want to torp that Iowa, which is probably what you're thinking, but he does have that, what is it, a Megami supporting him. Alright, so we do have a Benson here, and you are going ahead and taking him out. So I like that call. And the destroyers, I have a feeling, are going to be extremely important in this game, especially if they're divisioned up. That's, you know, in domination mode, destroyers are going to be important anyways, but just because they're in a division, that kind of gives me pause and makes me think they're going to be really important. Now, you did smoke there, but you did unfortunately take some shots from the Megami. That's fine. You didn't take a lot of damage. You might as well just keep firing away here. But, so I think what you need to keep in mind here, when you're behind ships like this, trying to torp them, they're sailing away from you, so it's going to be tough at this point. If they're already out of range, unless that guy turns into you, which you potentially could, I wouldn't worry too much about the torps. It's possible you're using that to get a idea of how fast they're going, which is fine. The situation you're in right now is potentially dangerous, though. You do have that Benson that's unsighted. That Megami is also unsighted. He could have turned in and be pursuing you. The Megami is extremely dangerous for a destroyer, especially close in, where it's not going to be missing a lot of shots. There's the Benson. Go ahead and get rid of him. Nice shot. That should have... Okay. Alright, so we got rid of one of them. And I think, if I recall, the other two were Japanese destroyers. Yep, 2 Akatsukis. So at this point... I'm just analyzing the map here. So, for some reason, these guys are all sailing away from you, but I would keep that in mind. Again, I think your goal here should be to play counter-destroyer. Because, I mean, as of right now, these guys are broadside. If you're sailing, if you, like, pulled up the torp indicator on that Iowa, for instance, and sailed directly at where it was pointing, that would be an intercept course on them. Potentially, you could torp the guy. If you're getting behind him here, though, let me see if that's what you're doing. Yeah, so I don't... Either you're potentially scouting these guys, which is fine, I don't mind that, but if you're trying to torp this guy from behind, the problem is you're going to have to actually get within your... He's going to have to be in your detection zone before you can even torp him. Iowa's a fast ship. I mean, a lot of these ships that are kind of trailing here are fast. So catching up to them is already going to be a problem. You're in between engine boosts. And looking on the map here, we do have those destroyers. They're popping up north of A, at least one of them. And depending on if your other destroyer can eliminate them, that might change it. But I still think 5 minutes ago, or whatever it was, if you would have just sailed directly north of B with the intent of killing those other 2 destroyers, we'll see how this plays out. But chasing 4 ships, King George can wreck you. It looks like he's about to go down. Iowa can wreck you, Megami. I mean, these are all extremely dangerous ships that, in order to torp them, you have to get very close. You can see right now the blue detection circle. So the Iowa's the closest one to him, and you can't yet torp him. And that's because he's sailing away from you, and it's a fast ship. You're really going to have to be detected before you're even within range. I don't know if that's worth it. Again, you might, in your mind, just be sitting here spotting, which is fine. That's a good thing, but you're down to 3 ships, they're to 5. So, I mean, at this point, simply spotting for, 2 other ships, it's not horrible, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. I mean, alright, so they got the King George down. But again, 2 Akatsukis, and you have the battleship isolated up there, so we're just going to assume, unless that Akatsuki really screws it up there, that battleship's already pretty much dead. Whether he gets another shot or 2 off, it's not really that big of a deal. Go ahead and try and get rid of... I mean, they're flipping B here. I'd say... I mean, even though you're tied up on points, I think you're going to have to take some risks at this point. You do open up on the Iowa, which is fine. You're resetting the base. I don't know. I still think these destroyers are your biggest problem. I mean, we do have a cruiser here. I don't think I've noticed what kind of ship that is yet. But it's not really going to matter. I mean, he's close enough to that Iowa where... Right now, that cruiser is kind of hiding behind that island, so he's not really supporting you. So picking a gunfight here is going to kind of depend on whether you have vision or not. Now, when you pulled up that roster, it was a Baltimore. Baltimore could potentially sit in, nose in on the Iowa and maybe take a salvo. Depending on his health situation. I don't know. I mean, sitting out here in the open, he hasn't punished you yet, which is the plus. But I almost think sailing over to like A and just trying to capture that. The problem we have is if they send one of those destroyers over to C, there's nothing you can really do about it. And that's going to cut down. I think this either... I don't know. If you torp the Iowa, you could potentially kill all the ships. I don't think you're going to end up killing these guys just on your guns, though. So I have a feeling this is going to be score dependent. Now, currently, I mean, you obviously are in a deficit, so if we can flip A, that's something to consider. I don't know. This is an interesting game. I mean, I would just... Okay, this guy, for some reason, is sailing in and shooting his guns. I guess he's trying to kill the Baltimore, which might not be the end of the world. He should be smoked if he has one. There's no reason for him to risk his life, but if you can kill him, by all means. But again, we still don't know where the other one is. And the right play in my mind for him right now would be to go get C. That's going to cause a lot of problems. The Iowa can kill the Baltimore. He can just rush him, basically. The Baltimore can't torp him in retaliation. The Iowa can trade shots with the Baltimore. Yeah, the Baltimore could potentially angle, but it's not a fair fight in terms of just a straight-up punching match. So you do have some torps down for the Iowa. That's fine. Now you've disengaged, you stop firing, and you are going over to A. Oh, crap. These... I don't know if those were from the ship you killed, because the ship you killed was firing at the Baltimore. I can't recall if he turned or not. And keep in mind, he is in a division. There's a decent chance that that is the other Akatsuki, so I would kind of play with that possibility in mind. Nice job on those torps, by the way. Again, you know, he's still half health, and there he is. You know, he does finish off the Baltimore, which was to be expected. So I think what you're doing right now is good. He's going to flip B. There's not a lot you can really do about that. Again, you can't sit there and trade shots with him. Now, because you have nobody spotting for you, you can't use the smoke offensively. It's just a purely defensive disengagement measure. So keep that in mind. I mean, if you're forced to win this by kills, you're probably going to have to torp this guy unless he's extremely not good. But he's not sitting in the back doing nothing except for reversing, so I have to assume this guy's at least above beginner level. So, and that's fine. You're able to get some shots. I understand you're trying to reset and capture at the same time, which is probably fine. Here I would lay one torp down and I would hang on to the other one. You got them both down. We'll see what happens here. Here's the problem with laying both those down. You saw there he's turning in. If he's smart, he should just... Well, they already captured B, but... I mean, they could just disregard that. I mean, that partially leads me to believe that Destroyer is probably in there too, because I don't think that Iowa could have flipped that anyway. But let's just say he could just push at you and then let the other Destroyer cap that. Now, because he's sailing towards you, and because you're spread, you can see those torps are spreading out. Okay, this guy was in the cap, and now he's pushing. This is just foolish. All this guy had to do was go to C, and the game would be over. I mean, potentially if you killed that Iowa, I don't think... I don't know. I think you're getting a little bit lucky on the enemy team. This is a very interesting game. I'm glad you submitted this one. Alright, so keep an eye there. You're about to get detected or undetected. You might as well have just shot. If you saw where that ring was, where the smoke, it's harder to see as you sail away from it, but you were close enough there where you might as well just shoot another shot. I think he's still on his damage count cooldown from that flood when you hit him. It wasn't going to hurt anything. Again, I don't think you can out-duel this guy, but you would have been briefly unspotted by that smoke. I don't know. Maybe that's a little risky. But it's something to consider anyways. Here you do have the torps going in. I'm trying to do the math in my head. I think you can just sail away at this point. Yeah, because even if it's going to take him a minute to flip that where the score would be neutral. So they'd be getting 3 points from B, you'd be getting 3 points from C, and they would essentially, A would stop accruing points for you, but they wouldn't get any until it's officially capped. So I'm pretty sure you can just sail away from here. Okay, you did get some bonus points there. And he did damage con the flood. But yeah, I think... Alright, so unless you do something... how do I say this? Unless you mess up and rush this guy for some reason. Which I don't think you would do since you've been playing this game pretty well. Yeah, alright, so you should win this game. I don't know, this was a very interesting game in terms of what you could have... All the choices you had. There were a lot of different choices. Some of them, even the recommendations I'm throwing out, I'm not 100% sure on because this did end up working for you. I think if I could change it, though, I would go back from the moment you captured C over there and just analyzing that situation. No, maybe from the moment you killed the Benson or whatever that USM destroyer was. After you killed him, you should have just looked at the situation and decided, I gotta kill these other destroyers. You were, again, I pointed out earlier, but chasing down all those ships, you never ended up getting the torps on them. If that was your intention, you just have to understand as a destroyer, you can't really catch people and torp them from behind, even slow battleships. But if you were just there to spot, that was fine. But it did end up working out for you, so I have to tip my hat for you. That was a pretty well played game, but very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of decisions throughout that game where maybe you could have done something different, maybe not, but that did end up working. So all in all, a good game. I don't have a whole lot in terms of what you were doing to criticize necessarily. I like to take a look at that one to consider what could have been. Alright, so next up we have a Konig domination mode game. I think this map's called Ring. Just a caveat, I don't have the ship, so I can't really comment on its capabilities or what you're doing, you know, how the ship's, you know, particular aspects affect the gameplay. So keep that in mind. You are spawned a... keep in mind, yeah, it looks like you and your guy that you're spawned with. I can't tell if you have 2 or 3 guys there. You're responsible for A, and you're turning away from that. I don't like that play. It's kind of one of my pet peeves, people abandoning the spawns they are responsible for. If you're deciding in your mind, I can't capture A, or you don't feel comfortable doing it, you need to kind of sail north forward, maybe a grid's worth, then turn around, drop your speed to like half, quarter, so you're in a position to fire on that point, but you're just straight up abandoning it. So we'll see how that affects the play. That could easily be the end of the game right there, and we're a minute into it, because unless they do what you're doing and completely abandon it as well, they're going to get an objective for free, and if that doesn't flip over the course of the game, that's going to be hundreds of points that you just gave them for free right off the bat. That's a big hole to dig yourself without really doing anything. So again, even if you don't think that you can capture A, get into a position where you can fire on the ships that are going towards it. You're going to slow them down, distract them. If they're in the cap and you hit them, you reset them, you get those green ribbons. They're worth a lot of XP, a lot of credit. So if you do it just for selfish leveling up reasons, that's fine, but it's also going to help your team win the game, which that's my objective when I play this, is to win. And again, if you win, you level up faster. So there's no reason not to play that. As I was talking, if you noticed, you had a destroyer on B. For some reason he left. I don't see any reason on the map that he should have been scared away, so that's frustrating. But you can see they're flipping A. They're flipping... Well, they have 1 destroyer. You know, so we assume 1 destroyer is on A, and probably the other one's on C. What you're doing right now, playing close to the islands, makes me nervous if you don't know where the destroyers are. If we're going to assume they're all accounted for at the moment, it's not as risky, but in general, battleships, I don't like to be near islands because you never know if there's a destroyer waiting for you on the other side, and if they torp you close range, especially in a slow battleship like this, there's not a lot you can do. This Königsberg, keep in mind he does have torps. I would not stop. I would keep moving. That's going to help you dodge a torp. If he's charging you like this, he's probably doing so with the intention of torping you. These guns, you can punch right through the front of that ship, so just aim like right below the tip of the ship there, and you could potentially score some decent damage. Like right there, you didn't get a citadel shot, but that was a massive shot. But you're slowing down, you're backing up, you're stopping. I would just punch it forward and then start turning right. Clearly right now he's torping you, so you are swinging your rear end to the right, which is good. But you're going a lot slower backwards than you would have had you never stopped. I would never go through this gap surrounded by 2 islands, because it cuts down your ability to turn. And once you were there, just stopping... Yeah, that was unfortunate. You end up getting 3 torps and you burn a damage con. Yeah, that's too bad. Just punch this guy right in the nose again. You gotta get rid of him. He's turning around to torp again. Alright. If you got those off, you're dead. I don't think he did. Yeah, you'd see him by now, so... I mean, you're lucky to be alive. I would not stop. And these slow battleships, just don't ever stop in them. Low-tier battleships, just keep moving forward, as a rule of thumb. I'm noticing your guns are floating around a lot. You see your front guns pointing to the right. You got the ones to the left. You got to switch to your control scheme to preset 3 or 4. Turn on the gun lock and practice using it, especially on battleships. It's extremely valuable. I think the argument that people tell me sometimes they don't want to use it because they give up that torp trailer view, which is kind of cool. I don't know if it gives you any tactical advantage watching your torps maybe once in a blue moon. Gun lock I use all the time on all ships, especially battleships, so it's extremely helpful. So, yeah, again, this stopping thing I think is causing a lot of problems. If you were waiting for your damage con and your heal to cool down, that's fine, but you shouldn't have pulled forward if that was your intention. I think you're taking a lot of damage here, just kind of sitting here and slow playing this. You do have your heal up now, which you do use, which is fine. But yeah, I don't know. I think you just kind of put yourself in a bad position, and maybe you aren't sure how to get out of it. Either just back up. But what's going on is you have those guys on A, and they're presumably sailing down, to the south to get in behind you. Now that this Wyoming's moved forward so he can't shoot you, you might as well get on B and start capturing it. You do have these 2 destroyers, which are, should be pretty scary. I don't know. I think this position that you were in was the source of a lot of your woes at this point. You were detected by a plane, now you're not. I mean, this guy's just committing suicide for whatever reason. What you're doing now is fine. I guess for sure you need to capture this objective, because you've given up A, which, like I mentioned, is going to cost you hundreds of points throughout the course of the game. They've lost C. Your team's kind of all scattered all over at this point, so this is I understand this is a low-tier game, so we're discussing strategy, but putting it into practice on low-tier games isn't always profitable. There's a destroyer to your right. You do have your guns. Again, they're all kind of flying all over the place. I would lock them to the left and then turn to the right, and that would bring all your guns to bear. You need to kill that destroyer, though, if you can. He's close enough that you can shoot him. That ship can easily end your run here. You do have your secondaries going off. If he's close enough that your secondaries are going off, you can for sure hit him with your main guns. So I don't know why you chose not to shoot him. If you're not comfortable or confident enough in your shots to hit destroyers, you need to practice it, because you need to get good enough in battleships to defend yourself. You can't rely on your team to do it for you, especially in random battles when you're not divisioned up with teammates you trust. It's going to cost you way too often. So practice those shots if you're not comfortable with it. You do need to note that you push through B without capturing it. Look at the map right now. You have 3 ships trailing behind you. You're attempting to shoot this broadside target, which is under attack by a destroyer. I would let that destroyer try and kill him right now. If he can't do it, fine. You want to be looking for broadside targets, but those 3 ships behind you, I would lock your guns to the rear rightward position of the ship, and then begin positioning to defend against those ships that are coming to get you. Those guys are definitely, alright, now they're starting to pop up on the map, and they're hunting you, so you need to understand that. And here you are noticing them. Again, your guns just float. I don't want to talk about gun lock the whole time, but this would definitely help you, because you need to have all the guns pointed basically at the same angle at all times, and then they're ready to fire as soon as you're in position. Again, here's what I'm talking about. If he can torp him, which it looks like he got him, so I can't criticize you for looking for broadside targets on the map, because those are what you want to be looking for, but I don't think you ended up shooting that guy. And meanwhile, all those ships that are pursuing you to the rear are now in position, and again, your guns are just floating around because you're not using the lock. if you're not going to use the lock, at least look back towards them so you can get ready to fire on them. I mean, yeah, I don't know. You do damage con when you're undetected there, which is fine. You do want to be careful about that. Now, you were low enough on health where I can't ever say don't damage con at that point, but in general, you know, I'll say in general you don't want to damage con unless you get into a point now where you're undetected. But again, because you're low health, you did need to do that, so that's the right play in that situation. Just go ahead and fire. I mean, you need to start getting shots off here. And notice that white icon, that little triangle on the screen. That means where you're aiming is going to hit the island in front of you. I know a lot of players don't know what that means. That's a very helpful thing when you're deciding whether to shoot or not. So I would just turn slightly to your right, create distance between this island. You can still use it potentially for cover. You are getting detected though, which means that destroyer is... The destroyer can see you, and I would, in my mind, assume he's coming to kill you. You're positioning yourself in another slot here. This center little ring thing on this map, don't ever bring a battleship in this area. There's too many spots you get ambushed from. It's too hard to maneuver around. You can't turn right to disengage. You can't turn left to disengage. All you can do is go forward or backward here. So this is a very limiting position. So battleships, especially, look on the map, your fire and range coverage, you can cover basically every ship on the map right now. You can shoot at them, you know, not taking into account island cover, but position yourself more in the open away from these islands. That'll give you actual shots at these ships because you won't be hitting the islands, and you know, you're creating problems because you're limiting your own mobility here. Now here you're kind of slowly poking forward. You got 3 ships to your left that could potentially shoot at you. You need to be pointing basically northward so you're angled towards these guys. And I don't like the slow little poking through the islands and battleships. Yeah, I mean, depending on if they're looking at... Yeah, you're getting shots, so... Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was going to be a hard situation anyways because of how low health you were. But look on the map, you were basically pointing directly west, and had you been pointed almost north with a little bearing to the west, that would have given you a very steep angle that you're presenting those other ships. That's a much more defensible position for your ship to be angled at than pointed fully broadside at them. So I would just eliminate the slow little creeping battleship play near islands. Islands are not to be used for cover in battleships in the way you're attempting to do in this game. I think you'd rather be out in the open and relying on your armor angling to defend yourself rather than using this island cover, which you're attempting to do. You can do that in more mobile ships, but it limits your options. Again, you can't turn out of there. Because you're so slow, you can't really dodge torps like we saw that cost you quite a bit early on in the game. So I would just cut the islands out of your battleship gameplay for now until you get a little bit more experience on it. But I don't know. There's a few things that we talked about in this game. I hope I gave you some things to think about. Again, I would just start off with not concede. I don't even know how you got A back. I wasn't paying that close attention. B you got as well, but those caps were... B was uncontrolled for the majority of the game. A was in their control for the majority of the game. And they've had C for quite a while, so you can see score-wise your team's dug quite a hole that you really can't get out of. And the only way you can really win is by sinking all the ships, and that's not always something you can rely on. You want to have multiple options on how to win the game by score and by kills. And unfortunately, when you guys get down in the score like this, then you're saying that we have to kill all the other ships, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but that's not in your control, 100%. So I don't know. I hope that gave you some things to think about there. Alright, next up we got a biscuit. Looks like we're a little bit into the game. You're on the defend the base side, which is good. On this map, straight, I always want to spawn on the defend the base side first. It's easy to lose this game by relying on your team to defend the base. So many people don't care about it. They'll just willingly give up the game because they're sitting there goofing off. So if I'm on the defend the base side, obviously you stay there. Middle spawn, go to the defend the base first, clear out those attackers, and that'll up your win rate on this dramatically. If you spawn on the attacking side, I mean your team's actually sailing away from it, which isn't the end of the world. Because again, you're far more likely to lose the game by losing your base than you are capturing it. But I would always stay there and pressure it. What I think is going to happen, just looking at what their team's doing, and go ahead and shoot that ship, by the way, when you're undetected. You don't have a line of sight on anything right there. You might as well just take those shots. But I think they're going to punch through their base and then start flanking your northern people, which it's not your responsibility. I'm just pointing it out from a game analysis standpoint. But what you're doing here, I mean, right now, fire, yep. Use these islands, especially where you have these low covers, and you have teammates you're spotting for them. Just keep pumping on reload, just keep shooting that thing. You know, you got fires on the Sharn horse, which is great. I would just hang back there until you can't shoot them, and just get as much damage. That Sharn horse close range can cause a lot of problems. It looks like your team's kind of backing them up, but there's no reason to not get rid of them. Just focus them down. Looks like you're intending to kill this. What is this, a Fubuki? The problem is you do have this cruiser out here and a Fuso. Both of those ships, I mean, they're probably focused on what's in front of them. But slow down. Wait, hang on now. Alright, so if you shoot that Fubuki, which looks like you're fully committed to it, that cruiser, I didn't see what it was, but depending on what it is, you could potentially get in on, you know, guns on you and take you out really quickly. Alright, you did rush the ship, got some torps down. Alright, I like the play on that particular ship, but right now... Alright. And then you did burn the smoke. Curiously enough, I don't think you actually needed that, just based on your line of sight. I don't have a problem with you using it, because, you know, that's a dangerous situation where you were pulling through. But... And you are extending it. This is a really long smoke deployment. Alright, stop now. You gotta watch that green icon when the smoke stops being green, then you're done deploying. You're way outside in front of that smoke, and now we're shooting this New Orleans. And this guy, if he knows what he's doing, he's gonna absolutely wreck you. Alright, he's got one shot of AP, so all he has to do is switch to HE now. This thing is really slow to start and stop, the Biscuit. It's going to take you a while here. You should be able to get at least a couple salvos in on you, I'd think. I mean, you're getting fires on him. You're getting damage fine, but... Okay, he's, is that AP again, I think? Alright. So here's my rule of thumb. You want to play like your team has no clue what they're doing until they prove you otherwise, and you want to play like the enemy team knows exactly what they're doing until they prove you otherwise. He shot you with AP again. Alright, so you got lucky right here. I mean, he actually blind fired you, so I don't know. I don't know if you would have been dead there, but you should be extremely low health. He had ample time he had two salvos that he should have hit you with HE, and he probably should have hit you with that first AP salvo that he kind of missed. So, not to pick on this guy, but you just got lucky that he's unfortunately not as good at shooting as he could be. But when you deploy that smoke, you know, you got to look at that green icon, or the smoke icon. When it's green, that means you're going to keep puffing out smoke. But you need to be slowing down. I think your firing radius was still full. You know, your detection radius was still your full firing radius because you had been detected while shooting. I don't know. It doesn't matter, though, because immediately started shooting at the guy, and you were way outside of your smoke. Like, you took the time to deploy it, you might as well, and you weren't the one spotting him, so you might as well just use the smoke cover that was there. And you got away with it. When you're shooting guys that are going rearward slowly like this, just point the guns right at the far tip of the ship, so in this case on the upper left back end. I don't normally want to talk a whole lot about shooting on these replays just because it's all experience-based, but that's just a little tip. If battleships or, you know, cruisers, like a slow cruiser like that, are backing up, just kind of aim it at the tip or maybe just a little bit above it. That'll give you a good lead. Anyway, I mean, you got out of that situation. It was lucky. Just evaluating the map, it looks like they did push through their cap like I kind of predicted. I wasn't keeping that close of an eye on what they were doing over there. But they kind of are dominating the middle and now the north end of the map. You have everyone on your team going down here. I would turn around and go north. We don't know. They still have 3 destroyers. And you have to assume those ships are swinging through to the north to put pressure on you, create crossfires. Again, we want to just assume the enemy's playing as well as they possibly could until we have evidence to the contrary. So it looks like you're doing that. Just keep going north. You want to get eyes on these ships at least to spot them and get some more intelligence. You do have a destroyer to the south. Okay, you're turning around. I would just ask yourself, what am I going to do down here? And I'm quickly evaluating it. I just don't see the value of playing down here. Again, if everyone's clumped up, it's so easy to play against teams that are clumped up like this. And score-wise, I think they're up. It's kind of tough to tell with the sky there. But they have an extra ship than you, and I think they're probably up on score intrinsically anyways. But the problem, what you need to realize is they still have these destroyers that are unspotted. If one of them gets in the cap, they're going to start getting points from that. Even if it's contested, they get points added to their score. So if this game ends up being, let's see, okay, missed those. If this game ends up being close, all right, it says, I think that's in French, but he's on the thing and you just looked at it. Now what are we doing here? Are we relying on our team, who I guarantee you is not paying attention? No. All right, you need to turn around and you need to fight whatever this thing is. Biscuit is not the ultimate destroyer killer, but its gun handling is decent. So, I mean, look at the scoreboard here. They're ticking up points, which that can come back to haunt you. I mean, they got points for, or they lost points because you killed them. But these games where they're looking like they're not going to be a rout, we cannot be conceding points. And I mean, I think you're backing up to go contest them. Speed boost, let's go. I mean, we don't have time for this. We need to move here. No, this is taken. All right, here he is right here. Mayhan, you should be able to take that ship out. I mean, be careful of the torps. I don't think he knew where you were, though. Now you're detected. You could potentially torp him if you swung your back ship to the right. I would just shoot. We don't need to rely on torps. Too many people are trying to torp destroyers. Just shoot the guns, I mean, and then start moving forward. This guy looks like he's about to torp you. You need to be moving forward. Speed boost, yep. Alright. I think you'll miss those unless you get caught on that island. Alright. So that was a good job in the dueling of that ship, and it looks like you had support from that cruiser, which is fine. Too much time, though. You just conceded a lot of points, and you know, you're up on ships now, so it might not matter. But we still have one more destroyer unaccounted for. I would push through north again. We don't want to have the same thing happen. I mean, they have 2 battleships. You have an extra destroyer down here. I would just 100% until you know where that other ship is. Go through the north side. So I like to talk about like player psychology a lot and tendencies. Ships usually are going to continue going where they were going when they were last spotted, which is why once you get undetected, if you change your course dramatically, you can throw off players that are observant enough to pay attention to what you were last doing. But he's pointing northward, so until I have any information to the contrary, I'm assuming he's doing the exact same thing the last destroyer did. And if that cruiser, if you wanted to ping him, say I need your help, and then ping the base, or I don't think you're on the comms, but if you can communicate to that cruiser to defend the base, fine. Then I'm happy with you torping these ships. I think you're playing for the win through kills, which it's fine when it happens, but in these tight games like this, I think you're relying on it a little too much. And here we are capturing the base again, so that's the exact same thing I described. The cruiser is not defending the base, so you just needed to... It's unfortunate that you didn't go north again. I mean, I think both of these plays where the destroyers are making the exact same route, you could have averted both of them. Maybe you would have died along the way, but these are points that are just going on the scoreboard here. A lot of players don't know this. It's possible you don't know this. But capture the base, when they're in the base, whether it's contested or not, they're getting points. And I don't know if this is a blind fire or if that was... Okay, and he did get the Fuso or whatever that was, which is fine. But I think you're effectively committing to having to win by killing all the ships here. I mean, just looking at the score, the longer the ship is in here without... No, you gotta... No, you gotta kill the ship. I don't know where you're going. You 100% cannot leave. He just torped. And we cannot wait for that cruiser to turn around. No. You were doing exactly what you should have been doing at this point. Alright. So, I mean, if you played this game and you weren't aware that you're losing points right now, that's fine. I don't know what you're doing, though. I mean, execution-wise, in terms of shooting, in terms of torping, you've been playing fine. I really can't criticize anything you've been doing there. But this right here could very well cost you the game if it comes down to score. Akatsuki here, you should be able to completely wipe this guy out. Again, you could potentially have used Gunlock, but I don't know why. He at least sailed, or at least fired a couple salvos, so... You know, I mean, if you're worried about getting torped, sometimes these late games, I think you're playing for a win to, you know, by killing them, and there we do have more torps, which you're in a position to avoid at this point, but, you know, we'll see what happens. If you end up winning the game by sinking all the ships, I don't know if I want to say necessarily it was luck, but you're adding way too much risk to this, and if you do end up losing by the score, then... I don't want to pin the game on you because it's a team game, but there's a lot of points that I don't think they should have ever had, and I think all you had to do was sail north. And those destroyers were in that base a lot of time that they shouldn't have been in there. And you can always say, well, my team didn't support it or whatever, and yeah, we're ticking down on time. I don't think you're going to wind up winning this, which is unfortunate. So I would just say awareness of the win conditions, awareness of defending that base and keeping them from accruing points. That would have won the game for you here because you guys are up ships, but we're going to lose on points, unfortunately. So, like I said earlier, well played overall, but just more awareness on that. So thanks everyone for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. Questions, comments, leave below, and we'll see y'all later. Alright, peace.